Hey Kings, and welcome back to the Augustus Maximus channel, and welcome to the world of Fallout 4. And today we'll be trying to recreate New Vegas in Fallout 4. Now that's a big statement, but what I mean is we're trying to make Fallout 4 more New Vegas-y, or at least more akin to New Vegas with various armors, weapons, the map, the climate, the quest mods, everything like that. We're gonna try and make Fallout 4 more New Vegas-y, and try and play through Fallout 4 as if it is New Vegas. And New Vegas is, considered by many, me included, to be one of the, well, essentially the best Fallout game out there, or at least one of the better ones. And it is definitely one of the better RPGs that have been released during the last 10 years. When it comes to like first-person shooter RPGs, definitely. And so in this series, we're gonna try and make Fallout 4, which is more of an action RPG, into more of a New Vegas style of game, which is a more traditional RPG with some first-person shooter elements, essentially. And New Vegas. What is New Vegas? We have to immediately establish what we love about New Vegas, and what I consider to be an amazing part of New Vegas is, first of all, the setting. The desert setting is obviously very nice, but that isn't, strictly speaking, the biggest thing why New Vegas is so grand, because Fallout 1 and 2 obviously had desert settings. And so you have to think about it. Why is Fallout New Vegas so beloved? And immediately you have to consider the individual factions, the variety of enemies that you can go up against, and it's definitely an outlandish setting. It's sort of a cowboys versus Romans setting, which is a little bit strange. But the most notable element of New Vegas that makes it beloved, at least by me and by many people that I know, is the freedom. In basically every single element, on every single level, when it comes to the world building, the quest lines, the storylines, everything like that. You have almost absolute freedom to choose whoever you want. And that's going to be an integral part of the series. We're going to try to make Fallout 4 as free for the player as possible. And immediately here we come to a conundrum. We see that, yes, we could do the standard Minutemen run, but that's a bit of a, just playing the good guys for the 20,000th time as a beginning quest is a bit of a mundane one. It's a bit boring, and we don't necessarily want to do it, so we'll be siding with the Raiders.
What seems to be the problem?
It's my friend Murphy. He went to the Phantom store, but it's been a while, and I'm starting to worry. Can you check on him for me?
Okay, I'll try to help.
Really? Thank you. It's the big yellow building down the street. Can you bring Murphy back safely for me, please?
And that's right, one of the crucial portions of creating a more New Vegas feel to Fallout 4 is depravity and all of the quest mods that are related to it and that alter the grand storyline of Fallout 4, which is kind of mundane, boring. We've all done it, we've all played through it. It always makes you out to be the grandest hero of them all, and I'm frankly a bit tired of it. And I really like the fact that in Fallout New Vegas you can just do whatever. You can side with the Legion, you can side with the NCR, you can just do whatever, and that's what we're gonna try and accomplish in this series. We're just gonna do whatever you want and try to mold the game into being whatever we want it to be. And yeah, we're gonna be a bit of a raider, I guess, in this playthrough, or at the beginning at least, because depravity is a bit of a raider-focused quest line. I'll let the quest line explain itself for you, but I haven't actually ever played through it. I've always used it as sort of an alternate start mod because it's a little bit quicker, but it has so much content in it that I feel it's just going to be. I feel it's going to be actually quite a nice playthrough as a sort of a stepping stone for the rest of the series. And And so we're just gonna play through a bit of depravity, see how it holds up, if it really gives you that New Vegas-y freedom, and really gives you a good alternate path, as opposed to, for example, the Minutemen, which aren't that bad. They're a good guy faction, right? The Minutemen are a good hero faction, essentially. Want to unite the Commonwealth, everything like that, but let's not do that this time. Let's do something a bit different. And you can see that this world space world space looks a bit raidery, doesn't it? It's relatively decent, but let's explore the building and let's see what the little girl called Stella was talking about. It appears we have been. Congratulations, you've been enslaved. Absolutely wonderful. Now, if you've ever played Depravity, you know that you're supposed to lose all of your equipment in this scene, but over the past, like, 2 times that I've used Depravity as sort of just a point of interest, I always those items always despawn. You're supposed to, you know, you're supposed to lose all your items at the beginning and recapture them like 3 minutes later, but because Fallout 4's engine is absolutely beautiful, sometimes those weapons and armor and everything you've tried to build up, you know, over the past like 3 hours or whatnot, they just disappear because the engine is wonderful. So we're not gonna deal with that, and I'm just gonna use an alternate mod that lets us keep our equipment at the beginning. And it's not as if, you know, this beginning section is that terrible. But I really like the sort of aesthetic that you get. You essentially get captured, you get fooled, which is nice because in Fallout 4 nobody ever like tricks you in the storyline ever. Like, you always essentially can believe everyone. You can take everything at face value, you know, because we are living in a community of good people. But that caravan shotgun's nice though. But I really like that, you know, this is a little girl, you know, you're not exactly gonna mistrust a little innocent girl, are you? And then you get enslaved. Absolutely wonderful. I really like that aesthetic, really like the style. So, that's immediately big improvement. But, yeah, actually nicely designed stuff. You know, you have a kitchen segment, you have sort of a dining segment for the guards, essentially they're supposed to keep track of you. Everything is sort of more believable, it's not that outlandish. A lot of traps though, really a lot of traps. You'd imagine that the guards would have a very hard time actually getting around with this many traps around. But, I suppose it's to keep the captured people and the captives, and those monkeys always making me a bit annoying because the clapping noise is just a bit strange. I suppose you could also play through this as more of a stealth segment, seeing as the enemy that we just took care of was using a melee weapon. So, you know, I suppose you could go about this whole thing in a more stealthy approach. The issue with Depravity is, the one big issue with Depravity is, and I'm gonna get it out of the way right now, is that for something that's supposed to essentially replace the Minutemen, it's actually relatively difficult. It's difficult because the enemies that you face, there's a lot of them, and they're pretty difficult to deal with. So, essentially, it's a good alternative to the Minutemen, but it is a little bit difficult. I'll give it that. Alright, and there we go. We should be able to just get out of here, and it's not like a large dungeon. What does this do? Just close the door, so we're not gonna mess with that. Let's just get out of here.
Well, aren't you the overachiever? I've been admiring your handiwork. We all have.
You put on a good show. Maybe you're not useless after all.
Our new friend surely has some questions. Perhaps we should introduce ourselves.
Name's Murphy. Head upstairs to the top floor. I've got a proposition for you.
And don't worry, we'll play nice this time.
Very nice voice acting, though. Very nice voice acting. It's not overly dramatic. It's not like really cringy, or at least not that much. It's relatively nicely done, and I do think that the mod creators, the creator that created Depravity, Actually, like, a lot of his mods have really nice voice acting, which is something to be appreciated because, like, the amount of terribly voice acted mods that honestly don't really need voice acting, there's just a bit too many of them.
Hi.
Gotta admit, I'm impressed. Stella here tells me this was all her little ruse. No hard feelings, huh?
Don't get all mushy on me. I hardly broke a sweat kicking their asses.
And a sense of humor, too. I like it. Sorry for any misunderstanding. We're a shoot first, ask questions later kind of place. Never can be too careful with looters breaking and entering these days.
Don't misunderstand. We're not criticizing you. Those were fair kills. You didn't know who we were, and we didn't know you from a random looter. Thankfully, Stella fessed up.
Hey, I was just trying to have a little fun. How was I supposed to know they weren't a common criminal?
Yeah, we're all friends now. Let's skip to the part where you help me.
That's rather presumptuous. After taking out 2 of our crew, I wasn't under the impression we owed you anything.
Well, that all depends. What kind of help are you looking for?
Hold on. I have some questions first.
All right, humor me. What do you want to know?
What do you do here?
After what you've seen, you really need me to spell it out? We're slave traders, not gonna sugarcoat it. We deal in raiders, mostly. Capturing them, and once their spirit is broken, selling them to slave owners up and down the eastern seaboard. A few miscreants we let work for us if they show promise, but the main goal is to ship these degenerates outside the Commonwealth.
What's the history of this place?
This place was originally the HQ for a large department store chain called Fallon's. The guy who ran the company was one of those conspiracy nut jobs who thought a big war was coming. Turned out he was right. The company had a large fallout shelter constructed underneath the building, and the rest is history. The survivors of that bunker and their offspring ended up being the ones to repopulate most of the Commonwealth. Eventually, they made Diamond City their primary settlement, and this place kind of fell by the wayside.
Which is a polite way of saying it became a prison. Someone needs to deal with the Commonwealth scum, after all.
I don't understand. Just kill them and be done with it.
Where's the fun or profit in that? You can only kill somebody once. Slavery, on the other hand...
So what's your story, anyway? Tell me about yourself.
I'm originally from Detroit. Used to make pickup trucks there at the Ford plant before the war. Thing about being a ghoul is, eventually you feel like you've seen it all. Detroit was never much to look at, even before the war. A century after the bombs fell, I started itching for a change of scenery. Heard rumors about the CORVEGA plant in Lexington. Decided to make my way east to Boston to check it out.
What happened after that?
When I arrived in Lexington, the rumors I'd heard about the auto plant turned out to be phony, so I started looking for something else. Joined up with a group called the Minutemen. That was a few months before the Battle of Diamond City. Mostly been doing that ever since, until it all went to shit.
What do you mean? What happened to you guys?
You're not from around here, are you? How about we do the abridged version for now?
The short of it is, everyone I served with in the Minutemen is either dead or turned raider.
Could you tell me anything about the kid?
Stella hasn't had it easy. Her dad was never in the picture, and her mom raised her at University Point most of her life, until the Institute torched the place. I met Stella and her mom Judy after they fled to Quincy in 2285, helped them build a life for themselves there. And then the Quincy Massacre happened.
What was the Quincy Massacre?
We can get into that some other time. Let's just say that life's greatest dangers often come not from external enemies, but from our supposed friends, who pretend to work for the common cause while scheming to sabotage it. When the Minutemen betrayed Quincy, most of the residents ended up slaughtered by the gunners, Judy included. I managed to get Stella out, and we made our way north to Concord.
And that traitor Preston followed us here. I'm telling you, he was working with Clint the whole time. And now he's right down the street. And you still won't do anything about it.
We've been over this, Stella. Innocent until proven guilty. You want me to focus on keeping this place safe from the gunners? Or waste time dealing with the loudmouth fool in the silly hat?
Both. I want justice for what they did to my mom.
And like I explained, you'll get it, if you have patience. Garvey will get what's coming to him eventually. But for now... Wait, hold up. You hear that?
Alright, so that was a lot of info we had to sit through right there, but honestly, pretty good story, pretty good setup, right? Like, they're so honest about, like, yeah, we were slave traders, obviously, you know, these are not what you might call morally upright beings, but it just showcases, it really gets you into the whole, not just like the raider aspect of the whole thing, but honestly the Fallout post-apocalyptic setting. It just fits a little bit better. Like you crawl out of the vault, and because we're using Desperado's overhaul, it's a desert setting, obviously, because you know Fallout New Vegas and everything like that. So you crawl out of the vault, you see this giant desert, and the first town that you encounter, obviously, except for Sanctuary, the first town you encounter is well, you immediately get spooked. You immediately get duped by a little girl. You get enslaved and everything like that. It's absolutely wonderful. I really like this mod. It's definitely more New Vegas-y than it is Fallout 4-ish. For Fallout 4-y, akin to Fallout 4 and the quests and storylines found within Fallout 4. Yeah, it's even a little bit closer to something like Fallout 2. Not necessarily Fallout 1. I mean, there was a lot of sort of this type of stuff in Fallout 1 as well. But in Fallout 2, because you encountered so many more towns and cities and everything like that, was a little bit more like that. These gunners, man, these are really... Oh, okay, they just spawned in. Okay, so the mod isn't perfect, okay? The mod isn't perfect, but honestly, we're still working within the framework of a Bethesda game, so something like this is actually to be expected. And these gunners, they really have really nice weapons, mostly mod weapons, because a lot of my mod list is just weapon mods and armor mods and everything like that, because I'm really trying to spruce up the wasteland, the enemies that we go against. But I really like that this stuff is integrated automatically even into other mods that don't necessarily have much to do with with the mod that we are just currently playing. This guy, okay, there we go, and this should be the last opponent, and okay, that was a wonderful mess. I'm not, okay, I'm gonna be honest, I'm not the best, okay, with these, like, okay, tactical reload mod again, so we need to manually reload everything, and yeah, there we go. So the gunners have been taken care of. Was a bit of a messy situation, but yeah, whatever, nicely done. And back to Murphy we go.
I was afraid those guys might show up. Thanks for your help. You alright?
That was interesting.
It's complicated. What do you know about the gunners?
Gunners are just raiders with better armor.
It's a little more than just better armor, but I like your spirit. No one's really sure where the gunners started out, but something changed about 8 or 9 years ago. Out of nowhere, they started sporting plasma weapons, advanced combat gear, and even vertibirds. Doesn't make any sense. Where did they get all that stuff from?
That's a good question. I guess... I don't know.
People bitch about the Institute, but look at what's really been going on. Quincy, GNN, Mass Bay Medical, Mass Fusion, 2 vaults, and all the major freeways. It's the gunners, not the Institute, who've been gaining the most ground in the Commonwealth.
How much of a threat are they?
No one invests the resources to capture those strategic locations without a larger agenda. Someone's behind it. We're just not sure who or what. At this point, there's not much to keep the gunners from taking Goodneighbor, Diamond City, or the towns up north.
Is there a reason that you're bringing this up?
You mean besides the fact that we just got ambushed here in Concord? There needs to be a group to stand up to these assholes. Someone strong, organized, and local. And I'm not talking about the Minutemen. I mean someone with real stones.
So, what did you have in mind? I'm gonna need some more in the way of details.
Ultimately, you gotta ask yourself who you want protecting things. A bunch of Muppets who can't defend what's theirs, or hardened killers who can handle themselves.
Well, I hadn't thought of it that way.
Uncertainty is sometimes better than an overt threat. If you build a reputation for being a little crazy, your opponents are never sure what messing with you will cost. So, they tend to avoid finding out.
Settlers can't instill that kind of fear. Whether it's against raiders, synths, mercs, super mutants, or even mole rats. They've proven time and again that they're incapable of deterring threats to their property over the long term. The Minutemen worked for a while, but they ended up self-destructing.
What happened to the Minutemen?
Depends who you ask. The challenge with running a militia is that volunteers inevitably have their own agendas. For a coalition to last, there needs to be a chain of command where members don't feel too constrained by your influence.
But still fear you enough to follow your lead.
Maintaining morale requires convincing soldiers to think less about themselves and more about the group. Involve them in a cause, a crusade against a hated enemy, and make them see their survival as tied to the success of the militia as a whole.
Of course, it's easier said than done.
Somewhere along the way, we lost that sense of common purpose. Infighting took over, and the militia gradually splintered into different groups. Some became raiders or joined the gunners. Others just disappeared. Quincy was the final blow, and now we're back at square one.
Jesus, what a mouthful. What's the plan again?
Whether it's the Gunners, the Institute, or who knows what other groups are out there, they're too powerful to take on directly. So we've got to use our weaknesses as strengths.
If your enemy is big and you're small, then by extension, you're fast and they're slow. You're hidden and they're exposed.
So we break our forces into independent cells who can operate elusively and autonomously, fighting only the battles we know we can win, capturing the enemy's weapons and gear along the way.
And using those tools against them in the next encounter. That way, the enemy is supplying us, and we grow stronger as they grow weaker.
Makes sense, I suppose. What's our next move?
The Gunners are calculated and cautious. It's gonna take them a while to figure out what just happened, which provides us an opening. The critical elements in any campaign are speed and adaptability, making decisions faster than the enemy can.
Striking first, before the gunners have time to assess and formulate a response, may throw them off balance. Their nearest outpost is up on the freeway, southeast of Walden Pond. That's likely where the attack came from. The freeway wasn't particularly well guarded to begin with. Probably even less so after the raid.
I want you to head over there, take out their remaining guards, and steal their weapons, so we can fortify our presence here in Concord. Prove to me you can handle that task, and I'll have a larger project for you when you return.
And if you want bonus points, there's rumor of a raider stash over by CORVEGA. We'll mark the location on your map.
You know, I really appreciate that they do explain themselves or just have some sort of rationale for strictly going against the Minutemen, and they do have a little bit of a history with them, so it's nicely integrated into the main storyline. It integrates a faction of enemies that you could go against and that sort of pose as the big faction that you're supposed to go up against as these raiders, and everything like that. It's really nicely integrated because you don't necessarily do anything with the gunners at all when it comes to the main storyline, like whatsoever. And the Minutemen, because they effectively function as the yes men route of Fallout 4, again, none of the factions necessarily go up against the Minutemen. A little bit of the Institute, you have like one quest where you have to deal with the Minutemen a tiny whiny bit. But even then, it's so minuscule, so irrelevant, essentially, that The fact that this mod, this storyline, is centered around two factions that essentially get ignored by the main storyline, I really, really appreciate that. Okay, onwards we go, and you know, I think since we're doing more of a New Vegas run, and one of the big things you can do in New Vegas is sort of just basically play sort of a raider. You can steal, you can kill anyone and everything like that, so, you know, let's try and replicate that a tiny bit here.
Huh? So what's your story? Looking to trade? Rob me? Or just ask directions to Diamond City?
Your money. All of it. Now.
Yeah, I know the drill. This ain't my first... Here.
And just to spice things up, yeah, she's not gonna be, you know, telling anyone about these deeds because we might get some sort of dastardly group, like the Minutemen, on our bot, and we don't necessarily want that. We don't want anyone finding out about our wonderful deeds here, and we get a bit of XP. We get to rob them again, and that's essentially very nice. And we don't need Trash Can Carla, since depravity adds, well, a lot of stores, essentially, a lot of yeah, a lot of stores for you to use, and let's deal with this situation as well.
Whoa,
Do you know what
easy
that
there,
junk has done to my boy?
This doesn't involve you.
You stop waving that gun in my face, or it's gonna involve me.
Okay, just take it easy. We'll lower our weapons, all right? Just don't do anything crazy.
Now hand over your money. All of it.
Just keep calm, all right? Here. That's everything I have.
Now get the hell out of here, both of you.
You gotta be kidding me.
Uh-huh.
And again, just to make sure and to be a little bit roleplay, let's just deal with them as well. And let's, again, rob them blind of at least some... There's something going on there. Is it a random encounter or something like that? Do I have some sort of... Okay, that's of an interest... That's a bit of an interesting situation right there. That looks to be... Maybe it's a random encounter. Do I have the Warframe, the Warfare mod? No, it's not activated at all, I don't think. So, I guess this must be a random encounter? Like, it's just raiders? Okay. Well, that's a surprise. Didn't really expect that, but it does definitely add to the sort of deserty, wastelandy feel. And there's actually someone that survived.
Hey.
You showed up just in the nick of time.
You're lucky I got here when I did.
I know it. Hey, you wouldn't happen to know of any good places?
No, sorry.
Yeah, same story everywhere.
Okay, I guess you're supposed to tell him, oh, you can come to Sanctuary and everything, but not in this playthrough. I'm terribly sorry. That's a lot of good stuff, actually. That's some good stuff on some random settler. Settler again. Well, they do have pipe pistols, but, you know, just getting bobby pins and food and ammo, that's actually quite... It's actually quite decent, you know, and sort of the first... Well, we are level, like, 18 at this point, obviously, because, yeah, why not? I do enjoy, you know, the higher level playthroughs a little bit more, or at least, like, the early to mid-game playthroughs, and on top of that, depravity is actually really difficult, when it comes to some of the side quests and everything like that, so, yeah, I think it's actually kind of warranted. And we can, you know, roleplay that. We were always a bit of a desperado, didn't we? We could roleplay as Courier 6, you know, everything like that. Maybe he trucked across the Mojave and everything like that. And it turns out that the Mojave stretches a bit further nowadays. But yeah, let's just get on with it. Okay, so this should be the first objective that we're supposed to take out, and the that was a terrible mess, and there we go, yeah, these cowboy repeaters, they need to you need to get a little bit used. Okay, that was supposed to just outright. Okay, that's a mess. Okay, at least that killed her. So, you know, Fallout 4's engine, sometimes you're precisely aiming at the target and your gun just misses, which is quite interesting. It's quite interesting that that happens, but that happens in vanilla, that happens in mods, that happens with modded weapons or vanilla weapons. It just sometimes happens, you know, so it's definitely not the case that I'm just a terrible shot. No, we don't really need that. But, okay, yeah, you can immediately see that you know, it's not just like you're supposed to kill like 5 gunners or whatever. They do actually have like lookout stations. They're a little bit more organized, everything like that. And why are we still in Okay, there we go. Mantises. Okay, well, very nice. Well, it is a desert setting after all, so there we go. Very nice. And you know, the gunners are a little bit more organized, everything like that. You know, so they do have a story explanation for what you're doing, and then they actually sort of create a believable situation and context for the story that you're partaking. Like the gunners are a little bit, you know, too well equipped, and obviously the actual reason is probably that the Bethesda didn't want just random raiders being everywhere. They just wanted to create some sort of faction. Maybe there was a plan for the gunners that ultimately got scrapped. But it is a little bit interesting that in vanilla you find so many gunner outposts, and they do play sort of as a minor faction that you're fighting. They do play sort of a role in, for example, in green tech genetics. Genetics, I think that's how you, and that's the name of the building that you find the Corsair in, where you get the Corsair chip and everything like that. It's interesting just how many gunners there are and how well equipped they are and how just well organized they are. They obviously have a relatively decent sort of military-esque ranking system, everything hierarchy, everything like that. It's just a fully fledged military organization that would squash the Minutemen within 5 seconds. Like the entirety of Quincy is essentially filled with them. And for you to not be able to interact with them in any sort of meaningful way when it comes to the storyline, whether they are the enemies or whether they are just whatever. I mean, sure, like Preston says like two lines about the gunners, like, yeah, we're going against them, and then they randomly pop up sometimes. You know, it's they either should have gotten a fully fledged quest line, or they just shouldn't have been used. And I really appreciate that the depravity mod, and I think a lot of the mods by the same creator, sort of use these factions, use these elements that haven't really been used in Fallout 4's main structure, main storyline, main gameplay loop, whatever, like at all. Essentially building on top of those foundations that were there and that were not utilized. And that's, I think that's why it's a good fit for making Fallout 4 into more of a New Vegas-y feel. Because Fallout New Vegas utilizes these like tiny little whiny structures that are all around the Mojave Wasteland so well. Every single town has a plethora of quests and have stuff going on. Even like the west side of New Vegas, where there is essentially nothing going on. There's still a little bit of stuff going on, but it's underground, and you just have to look for it. You have to find it, and so I really do think that these the mods by the mod creator of Depravity and Depravity itself is a good fit for this playthrough. And there we go, first little bit of equipment secured, and yeah, a lot of good stuff. Yeah, gunner's weapons stash, so it's interesting. It's interesting that this is the first quest they sent you, and obviously it's a big departure from the quest that you get as the Minutemen. I like that. Like, the first quest of the Minutemen, other than helping Preston and everyone, and there is essentially immediately a Radiant quest. It's not exactly a Radiant quest, you're supposed to help. Why can't I hit him? I suppose he's a little bit too far, but what a shame. Maybe there's something blocking the way, or I don't know. But yeah, a huge departure and a very welcome one, that's for sure. Okay, coming up on CORVEGA, and yeah, I suppose it's going to be a very similar situation to the one where with the Minutemen, where you essentially, or the Radiant quest, you don't necessarily have to join the Minutemen to do the Radiant quest for the settlements, or just a settlement quest or whatever. The side quest, it's always, you know, go here, kill them all, and then get some nickety-doo-dah from them, and you know, just bring it back. And ultimately you don't necessarily have to bring it back, because sometimes you don't have to bring it back. Like with the shish kebab, you're supposed to retrieve something and then you bring it back, and the original owner and the quest giver's like, I don't actually really need it, you can keep it, which is just completely like, that's just like, why wouldn't you make it, I don't know, like just a Minutemen quest outright for you to grab the shish kebab, like, yo general, I heard there's something there or other. And yeah, so, you know, capturing these weapons from the gunners and then using them to essentially arm our little gang group is ultimately yeah, it's a good story. It's a good story sort of use of the little gimmicky things that we're supposed to pick up for the against the opponents. We were supposed to pick up these things and then use them against the gunners. It makes sense within the story, and I like that they're actually doing a little bit with it. But it's a lot of raiders. They still have pipe equipment. So one thing I actually might do for the next episode, or episode 2 or whatever, is to find some sort of mod that removes pipe weapons, because I really despise them. I really dislike them. And in Fallout New Vegas, you had no pipe weapons, or sort of this generic class of weapons that just suck. There was never really anything like that. It was usually just 10mm stuff and 9mm stuff. But if you actually use the 10 or 9mm weapons, like the submachine guns or whatever, they're actually pretty decent. They were actually, more often than not, they're actually pretty good if you had the correct perks and everything. The 10mm especially, you can find some relatively decent mods for that. So I mean, like mods in game for in Fallout New Vegas that make the guns a little bit better. And if you obviously if you level up enough, you can use them to a relatively decent degree. But the pipe weapons in Fallout 4 are always just a little bit ugh, And well, now we have to deal with the entirety of the CORVEGA raiders. So yeah, it's relatively difficult first quest, that's for sure. And I believe this should be the final. Yep, that should be the final raider, and that was like 30 raiders at least. So and on top of that, if you're actually fighting the raiders at CORVEGA, you inevitably aggro some of the ghouls and some of the raiders. Like for example, the raider with the fat man with the mini nuke launcher, that's just over. Was it like? Not Jacobstown. Is it? No, it's not Quincy. Whatever the segment of the map is called, the one with the raider with the mini nuke launcher is. You always aggro him, so the explosions are just going off everywhere, and it started raining in the middle of everything. So a wonderful experience. But I do actually like a lot of the weather mods that Fallout 4 has. One of the big things that Fallout 4 has going for it is just the amount of various mods that have come out, and that plays directly into your hands. Unfortunately, there aren't that many quest mods, so making this playthrough truly spicy is going to be a bit of a challenge, maybe. But I'm all for a bit of a challenge, and so that's all good. And yeah, you can't necessarily see anything. It's a bit of yeah. Might want to modify those nights a little bit so that we can actually see, because even in New Vegas nights, the nights truly weren't that dark. And I don't actually remember in vanilla Fallout 4. Does it rain? Does it ever rain in vanilla Fallout 4? I really can't remember at all. I don't think so, but maybe it does. I know in Fallout New Vegas the only time it ever rains is in Honest Hearts, and it's yeah, there it rains, but in vanilla it doesn't rain. So maybe we're gonna have to modify the weather mods a little bit.
Hey there.
Wasn't sure you were gonna make it back in one piece. Any trouble out there?
It was a walk in the park.
That's what I like to hear. Here, got you a little something for the trouble. Let me know when you're ready for the next job.
Any news on your side?
Just been cleaning things up here from the raid. Speaking of which, if you want to lend a hand, feel free to use the workshops around here. There's one on the first floor and also a second one in the bunker. Have a look around and make yourself comfortable.
Okay, and that's going to be it for this first episode of transforming Fallout 4 into New Vegas. And yeah, pretty good beginning. We're obviously going to continue down the depravity quest line, but I think we're gonna hit the side quests, which are, there's a huge plethora of them, as you can see. Holding out for a hero, I think we're gonna do that one next time, because it's I hear it's pretty fun. So there we go. Anyway, thanks guys for watching, and see you next time. All of the mods that are relatively relevant to this playthrough are in the description down below. Yeah, see you guys next time.